Where does the cool air of air conditioning come from? Maybe, that is a question that is still a mystery in our heads. We know that the air that comes out of the AC vents comes from the air in the room itself. But why is the temperature colder? Where does the cold temperature come from? In this video, we will expose the mechanism of how the cool air is created in the air conditioning system. If we disassemble this AC unit, the imagination of the air circulation is like this. The air conditioning system only circulates air in the room through these hollow components. This component called evaporator. The evaporator consists of two components. They are the hose and the heat sink. Inside the evaporator hose, there is a special fluid. It's a refrigerant. Refrigerant is a special liquid that has a very low boiling point. This makes the refrigerant able to absorb room temperature, which is actually not too hot. So, when air flows through the evaporator gaps, the heat will be absorbed by the refrigerant. And the air coming out of the AC vent will have a very cold temperature. But we have a problem. After the refrigerant absorbs heat, its temperature will rise, and its form will change to gas. When the temperature of the refrigerant increases above the room temperature, the refrigerant is no longer to absorb the heat. That's because the heat is balanced. To make the refrigerant able to absorb heat again, we need to lower the temperature of the refrigerant and change it back to liquid form. How to overcome this? Outside the room, there is another AC unit. This box is responsible for releasing heat from the refrigerant. So, the refrigerant can be circulated to cool the room air continuously. So, from here we know that the air conditioning system consists of two groups of components. This is an indoor unit, which functions to lower the room air temperature, and an outdoor unit. It used to condition the refrigerant to its initial state. Between the two units is connected via two hoses. It uses for the refrigerant inlet and outlet. To make it clear, we continue from the evaporator. So, as we discussed previously, after absorbing heat the temperature of the refrigerant will increase. And its form changes to gas. That means, at the evaporator outlet, the refrigerant is in a gaseous state, and it is not cold. Then the refrigerant flows to the outdoor unit, and come into the compressor. In the compressor, the refrigerant pressure will increase. It aims to condense the refrigerant. So, the heat is released more easily. So, after passing through the compressor, the refrigerant pressure rises but the temperature is still hot, and its form is still gas. Then from the compressor, the refrigerant flows to the condenser. Here the refrigerant will be condensed. In other words, the refrigerant form will be returned to liquid. The way to do this is by lowering the temperature. To reduce the temperature, high-pressure refrigerant will be flowed into the condenser hose. Then the condenser fan turns on. It will suck air from the back, through the condenser towards the front. Because the refrigerant has been compressed, this blast of air is able to release the heat in the refrigerant. This makes the temperature of the refrigerant drop, and it returns to liquid form. So, at the condenser outlet, the refrigerant is cold, and it is liquid form. After leaving the condenser, the refrigerant is flowed again to the indoor unit. Here, the refrigerant will enter the expansion valve. Expansion valve is a component to create a drastic pressure drop effect. This is necessary to reduce the temperature of the refrigerant even colder. So, in the high pressure position, the heat from the refrigerant has been thrown away by the outdoor unit. But when the pressure is drastically reduced through spraying techniques, the temperature will drop drastically. This is done by passing refrigerant through a narrow gap. After the refrigerant passes through the expansion valve, it goes directly into the evaporator. Then the blower rotates. This will trigger airflow to enter from the top of the AC unit, pass through the evaporator and exit through the AC vents. Then how we can regulate the temperature. Temperature settings. blower speed settings, and other AC modes are regulated by the PCB, which is located next to the evaporator. This electrical board is connected to the condenser fan and compressor. So, if we set the temperature to the coldest position, the compressor and fan will rotate at maximum speed to maximize cooling. So, in conclusion, the air conditioning system is a form of heat transfer or thermodynamics. Refrigerant is used as an intermediary to transfer heat. The heat contained in the room air is transferred outside the room without moving the room air. So, air conditioning is only able to transfer heat. So, the air in the room, because the heat is released, the temperature will drop. And it creates a cool effect in the room. That is how the engineering of air conditioning system. Hope adds our insight.